Welcome back. The former chairman of the House Intelligence Committee, Shillman Senior Fellow at the Investigative Project on Terrorism, author of Architects of Disaster, The Destruction of Libya, Pete Hoekstra, and joined by the investigative journalist specializing in Middle East affairs and counterterrorism as editor-in-chief at the Foreign Desk, Lisa Daftari. I want to thank you both for joining us. Let's get to work here. Pete, let me begin with you from a strategy standpoint here. These are killers that are adapting. Because while John Kerry may come out and may try to downplay this as much as he possibly can, others will do it as well. Every time we put a roadblock in front of them, no matter what the group is, they are adapting and they are learning. How are we supposed to get ahead of them?
Well, Ed, I really take issue with the point that says we're putting roadblocks ahead of them. What we've done over the last number of years is we've removed roadblocks. We removed a roadblock in Egypt when we supported the overthrow of Mubarak by the Muslim Brotherhood. We removed a roadblock when we facilitated and helped overthrow Gaddafi and created another failed state in northern Africa. We removed a roadblock by supporting the Muslim Brotherhood and radical jihadists in overthrowing Syria and turned Syria into a failed state. And our leadership has allowed Iraq to become a failed state. And we're now also losing in Afghanistan. We're not creating roadblocks. This administration is removing roadblocks and embracing the Muslim Brotherhood. It's time to realize that I think this is what's happening in Europe and what the American people are saying. This is a war. This is a global war. We're losing the war. We don't have effective strategies to fight it, and they're looking for new leadership that's going to take this issue and confront it, contain it, and defeat it. We can win this war.
All right, let me then, Lisa, before I come to you, let me play this soundbite. This is John Kerry, the Secretary of State, talking to the Aspen Ideas Festival. And his thinking here is that ISIS is becoming desperate, and that's what we're seeing now. Here's what he said.
It has been more than 1 year since Daesh has actually launched a full-scale military offensive. And that's because our coalition is moving forward relentlessly on every front. We have to get it right 24/7, 365. They have to get it right for 10 minutes or 1 hour. So it's a very different scale. And if you're desperate, and if you know you're losing, and you know you want to give up your life, then obviously you can do some harm.
Lisa, from a journalist standpoint then, is that the sense that you get from around the world when John Kerry says that ISIS is desperate? Granted, we're killing them, and there's a lot of bodies that are laying around there, former ISIS killers that are hitting the sands and elsewhere around the world. But is the sense that America is really doing enough, or do people still look at us as just being deleterious and fooling ourselves?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think all the different attacks around the world paint a much different story and tell a different narrative about the world, the war on terror and how we're doing. I think what the administration has done for many years, and I don't know if the American public is still buying this, is to focus on certain statistics about perhaps ISIS losing territory in Syria or Fallujah, but they're not looking at them growing in Libya or Fallujah falling into the hands of Iranian operatives on the other hand. So we're not getting the full picture by the administration or by the whitewashing or liberal media that paints an entirely different picture. Now, if you look at this narrative that was painted for us that this war is contained to just Syria and just Iraq, unfortunately, the headlines are telling a different story. Whether it's we're looking at at Europe, we're looking at Turkey, we're looking at Orlando, we're looking at San Bernardino, we're looking at Garland, Texas. Unfortunately, I think the American public have woken up to a very different reality.
All right. Now, ISIS has not claimed responsibility for this attack, at least not yet. But the CIA Director John Brennan believes, as others do as well, that this just stinks of ISIS and it has all the trademarks. Here's what he said.
The despicable attack at Istanbul's international airport yesterday that killed dozens and injured many more certainly bears the hallmarks of ISIL's depravity.
Now, the question that comes to my mind immediately, Pete, is who cares? It doesn't make a difference if it's ISIS, if it's al-Qaeda, if it's a group who just decided that they were going to go out and start building bombs, because we have transportation centers here that simply are attractive targets. And it doesn't seem as if we can do anything about it, Pete, in order to stop them. They're managing to get inside the defenses.
They are getting inside the defenses. But again, This is an effort and an enemy that can be defeated. I agree with you. I don't care whether it's ISIS. I don't care whether it's Boko Haram, some other group. These groups have a lot more in common than what separates them. And we need to recognize that this is a global movement, and we need to defeat these groups globally, every single extension of them. And the first step is recognizing that we have to eliminate their safe havens. They no longer should be able to operate to run a state near Europe, whether it's in Libya or whether it's in the Middle East. They should not have the opportunity where they can plan, prepare, and train to attack the West.
Anybody wants to join us here on the Hardline, 1-877-Newsmax if you'd like to chime in. Lisa, Pete just used the words globally. He used that global movement, and he's exactly right. He also talked about safe havens. The feeling that you get from people around the world, is it that the United States, it doesn't make a difference. This is a global movement, and the United States is not stopping it. These are vermin, these are cockroaches. They're not doing enough. We can do whatever we want. We'll walk into any airport we want sooner or later because you just don't get it, and you don't get how to attack us.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think Brexit, as much as people are talking about it from an economic point of view, it's much more about national security. And I think one of the more important parts of watching what happens in the aftermath of this Turkish attack was also as interesting as watching what happened in the aftermath of when ISIS killed the Jordanian pilot. And what happens is you're watching, these are Islamic countries with Islamic leaders. And you're looking at Erdogan, a very Islamist leader who's been criticized as such. And now you see them when there is an attack by ISIS or whatever terror group, as you correctly pointed out, it doesn't matter, whatever terror group, it's looked at as a national security attack.
Let me stop you there if I can, Lisa, because you brought President Erdogan into this, and isn't it fair to say that as the president of Turkey, he does not really have a great desire to attack ISIS? It's too interwoven into his country. Turkey's borders right now, when you look at where they are, he's got to keep peace with them in many ways under the table. And the ISIS fighters, sure, they'll launch an attack every now and then, but they don't want to make him look bad because they need Turkey as much as they need anybody else.
Absolutely, but that's the whole issue. At this point, you know, Turkey was our friend turned frenemy when it came to ISIS because they were very much lukewarm about going against ISIS because they, on the one hand, needed them for oil sales and other things, as you said, their proximity to ISIS, and on the other hand, that when there were attacks in Ankara, for example, in October, then it became, again, a national security threat. So I think what you're seeing now is this attack is a symbolic attack. It's the airport, a hit on their air tourism sector, similar to what we saw perhaps with the of the Egyptian liner, that being, again, a hit on their tourism industry. I think we're looking at a very, very savvy terrorist organization that their finances are very important to them. They're going to go after the financial sector. We're looking at a group that cannot easily be stopped. And the bottom line always remains that when we deal with it now, it's going to be hashtag I stand with Istanbul, I stand with this, I stand with that. We go back to normal life and they go back to plotting their next attack. We have one more week of Ramadan. God should have grace on us and protect us from any more such attacks.
Pete, I only got 20 seconds left here. Is it not fair to say that what Lisa's point is that they think of killing us 24 hours, 7 days a week? We don't seem to think of that 24/7, do we? Getting back at them.
We still don't even recognize the enemy. We need to focus on it 24/7. It is a war. And like I said earlier, we can win it if we just focus on it and get serious about it.
And that's the biggest problem, is not being able to get serious at this point, or at least not being able to come up with that comprehensive idea on how to at least begin it. Because frankly, one of these days we're going to have to hermetically seal airports, railway stations, and bus stations, if that's how we want to live, to keep them from potentially killing us. That's a thought we'll have to discuss another time.